Okay, let's get started again. Our lost time has re-emerged. I have to admit, I must have lost the slide. That is quite bad, actually. Yeah, but here's a slide back. Time was, of course, the third one from the general clues, and those are coming from, again, Meredith and Manpower. And she pointed out that time can have similar effect like resources. Sometimes it's even like paralleled with it, and it's technically difficult. Difficulties require more time to solve. In some cases, in a lot of research projects, it's often you have to refine your sensoric to actually arrive at certain quality indications. Yeah? So that is often a really tricky one. And then along with time again, scope of work increases, unexpected utilities needed relocation, task sequencing not done right, or maybe changes even by being subcontracted to a third party. So you were thinking actually that they use very different equipment to what they do. Most drastic example, I had the pleasure of being in such a project, and I did understand why my colleague had like a high blood pressure and heart problems at the time. I arrived at a site where we were putting really big pipes into the ground. It was a cooling system that we were supporting for a closed circle for energy plant. Let's call it an energy plant. That is very good. So it was a cooling system for energy plant, and we had ordered very big pipes with a radius of 75 centimeters. So this is like a diameter of 1.5 meters. Yeah, a big pipe and 40 meters long. Yeah? So we didn't believe in segmentation there, and we had ordered 2 cranes. Yeah, that this was our plan of solving this problem, and it was subcontracted. What arrived was 2 buses of people. Now, as a project manager at that point, I can just point out that I was still asking naively, when do the cranes arrive? We will be late. They said, like, no, we don't need cranes. And I went, my colleague took me for dinner, yeah, because I was not the project manager in charge. I was like support. Yeah? And we went, not for dinner, we went for lunch. And they were literally putting it into the trench by hand. Yeah, this in my health understanding, coming from Germany, where we do like cranes, this is a crazy idea. Yeah, but it worked. The pipe was in, and when we came back, they were even leveling it still, and that was just strange. But it explained why the trench was as well wider than what we expected. Yeah, so there were a lot of hidden clues that I should have really picked up with my technical understanding, but not I didn't. Yeah, so sometimes it's stuff like that. That is like different to what you actually expected. It was done in time though, yeah. So and it was a lot cheaper. We paid for cranes, and cranes are expensive, so they made the fortune on that. I can tell you, no, not the fortune, but they made a reasonable profit.
What country was that?
Hi. Oh, now we are. Yeah, it was South Africa in the north, yeah, near the Orange River. Yeah, if somebody's interested.
Health and safety doesn't exist there.
No, you would be surprised. Very thorough. It's just in the desert it's not really enforced, I guess, that much. And at that point we were not the client, so clearly the client must have not paid too much attention to this. But we raised our concerns. This is important to do. Yeah, sometimes people don't know that it's risky. Yeah, so this is important to do. But yeah. Yeah, then key proceedings tasks were not yet completed on time. There are particular industries where we can sing a song on that. So because it's subcontractors, and the subcontractors have like as well a chain of contract jobs that they are basically attending. So this is very bad. Yeah, if then people disappear again, like, oh, you're not finished yet. Okay, I leave. I come back later. Especially if you have like if they belong to the critical chain of activities that make your project. And this is a particular painful notion, yeah? And that it needs communicating. Yeah? This is as well task of course, a key task for us. Then we have more specific clues. Oh, my diagram has switched. Oh no, there's a second. Okay, yeah, it's okay. So those are primitive indicators, and this is literally what we talked about before. Yeah, this is more resources or less resources have been used than planned. This goes in either way. Yeah, so savings should be as well recognized and communicated, that you're performing better than planned. Be careful. Don't make it a linear quality indicator for future projects. Sometimes there are unique circumstances. Yeah, so yeah, I won't go too much into it, but there are certain manufacturing ways that actually favor certain materials, and then there are other ones that don't favor certain materials. Yeah, and just be aware that it's not always as linear as it looks. Then you have as well equipment hours, total man hours. So sorry, to explain this, Searchy mapping out equipment hours, total man hours, plant versus actual, and then here even concrete use. Yeah, this is just beautiful because I like concrete. But so there are different notions to this. Yeah, either is critical to be communicated. Then it's a time notion. You probably know that diagram quite well. It's a simple notion of a Gantt chart. It's again a plant or the benchmark versus actual. It's a very simple notion. This is just an example. You can do that a lot more sophisticated, of course. And last but not least, I thought as well with the cost activity. Those are very simple cues, and I've given you the most generic notion along with this. So traditionally, you probably, are you doing this with Claudio? Does he hint towards that? Okay, some people not. This means he has probably done it. If you did not, then this may have slipped your attention, but he has actually a lot more to this. But the key with this is, of course, they're primitive. They may be biased. So, as I was saying, if your past project was like performing very well because it was manufactured in perfect conditions, it wasn't really a project, you're just doing the same thing again. And you may come already up with optimized quality indicators, faster time, and if you didn't do it in your project and it's not the same speed, then quite frankly, you are a very harsh project manager. You give very little achievement and accomplishment feeling to your team. Does that make sense? Yeah. So that is a biased notion. Do not or another one is I hinted health and safety. Different countries have different expectation what performance looks like. So the performance may differ from culture to culture. And I still dream from the Japanese. If we are back at construction, the Japanese built you a whole house in modularized notion with concrete. That was interesting. And that they have even refined it so much that the concrete that they're using for the window framings, it's even finishes that they're doing. It's actually unfair calling it concrete. It's more ceramic. This is how good it is. So I was just so impressed by this. But quite frankly, imposing this on our German local contractors at the time was just a bad idea. They would be not up for this. They don't like cement and concrete that much. This is a problem. I think in France we would have a chance there, but they do like as well concrete. Okay. So it does matter where you do it. This is the whole point. And do not consider that progress may be overestimated or underestimated through execution of underscheduled work done or execution of more work of low value and less work of high value. So this is in a way, if you go into more precise measurement, you can of course do a value chain as well. Create when does the value actually along your project activities get generated for the client or that you're delivering. This could be as well something. So if you are spending hours on like an activity that is actually not seen, cabling, for example, is a wonderful example. In automotive, aerospace, even ship industry, cabling has received a certain content. They just bundle it because in the past they put it in individually and they were beautifully aligned and along the wall you could see the cabling. Actually, in underground metros and subways, we still have that. Good cabling, we see that by easy to understand cabling. If you look nowadays into the ship industry or airplanes or cars, any kind of like vehicle that moves you, you will see it's bundles. Yeah, so they have just like put the cables on each other and like tied them together and then put them in one go. This is a typical example. It didn't really matter for the client too much. It does matter when you're the car mechanic. You come for maintenance and it does matter a lot, but they were not too much considered in the high value end chain, which is sad. But okay, that's just an example there. Specific clues are normally as well mapped out. This is, I do assume that actually Claudio does that in a little bit more. I just wanted to put that in to show you the most common one. This is always a terrifying slide for when project managers present it potentially to the project sponsor or as well to the finance executive. Yeah, those are the terrifying lines. What do they stand for? This is a little bit a guessing game. Is it? What is the red line? Yeah?
Budget, cost, work schedule.
Yeah, this is pretty good. Yeah. So this is what we have budgeted. What is the P? And then the green line?
I think it's performance.
Yeah. It's optimal performance. Yeah. Versus what is ACWP?
Actual.
Actual. Yeah. Yeah. So these are acronyms that you can find in the literature. I give you the calculations to it as well. Yeah, so they are ratios. If you hit them, you know you are wrong. Yeah, so you know that you have either planned bad or that your performance doesn't have anything to do with what you actually set out to do. Then this is literally what you come to. If you're interested in this, literally this is probably a good. This is actually a good starting point to start looking into this. Yeah. Yeah, and there's a logical gap as well with it, but that's a little bit aside. So let's remind us a little bit. I had heroically already unraveled this a little bit of the four M's. So money, not a direct resource, rather used to influence amounts of quality of the other resources. Yeah? So we can buy in with this other resources, or as well have an impact on quality notions. Then machinery and equipment was often used to augment labor. This is very old notions. We still have that in many countries. Yeah, we still have that manual work being replaced by mechanical machines. Yeah, we have as well more advanced now. We have even now biology coming in. Yeah, so we have even different applications that may not be considered machines. Yeah, but this is far-fetched, so I don't think that is the majority of projects. If you work in research and development, you may have to consider your machinery or equipment definition new, because we will have now as well we have genetic concepts. I didn't even want to just go into cyber genetics, but we have different tools that we are using nowadays. Yeah. Machinery can be expensive. It's often a high-value asset, and it's often written off from project to project. That is as well why I pointed out that cranes in a project is actually quite expensive in comparison to other construction activities. There's always as well the costing of the actual machinery use time against its lifespan, of course, included. Yeah? May involve as well renting or purchasing. That comes depends, of course, on your costing of the project. How many projects do you have? Yeah, what is your core activities? Materials and supplies increase in quality or quantity may be necessary to enhance project control. This is again when you actually measure and you realize that you have a lot of wastage of materials, or the parts that arrive are not all fit for purpose, something like that. And then improved inventory system for materials, asset registers, that is normally quite popular. In larger companies, we often have a pull system. So you don't actually store it, you have like a good supply chain that delivers arguably just in time, but normally just in time is just before time. So there's like different systems how to deal with it. So this goes back to the supply chain and logistics management. Yeah. Then you have as well Manpower, which was more or less translated from here into labor and supervision. Here we look into project problems, time delays, access cost, poor performance, maybe due to human elements, action or inaction. Yeah? So we talk often in project management around behavior, but motivation is of course the will from somebody to behave a certain way. Yeah? And this is of course what our project notion should be a focus on, that we are all up to do it. Yeah? And that means as well that you bring that momentum to everybody that is involved. In using Manpower as a tool for project control, this is still done and still debated in literature. There is a certain issue with this, yeah. So especially if you are behind time, I don't want to suppose that is what happened in Brazil, but Brazil is just a country that potentially does that. They just have time pressure and enforce it on their staff and say they should work faster. And unfortunately, that translates in some poor souls' ears into do crazy thing and avoid safety that takes up time. Yeah? So this is very dangerous to just use it as a acceleration tool. Yeah? So that can create anger, fear, frustration, or actually risky behavior. Yeah? So be aware of that. But this is literally what I will refer to now. So elements of project, we are still in this lovely diagram or algorithm if you want, but it's not really algorithm, but a structure. So here elements of project control, one being resource related, this is normally what we have a stronger emphasis on. Project related, we had a lot of it through the semester, but it's subdivided slightly differently. So manpower related, it's traditionally, and this is human resource control as a keyword, it's often debated that there are layoff, hire and fire cultures on projects, and we see that actually. This is still in a lot of projects a case. This is not a feasible strategy in all places. Yeah? So be sensitive. If somebody is not fit yet to do the job or hasn't got competencies, we have of course mechanisms of learning. Yeah, and then training or allowing more time that they can familiarize with it. Yeah, does actually allow skills development. Yeah, and this is of course an important notion. But yeah, along that is as well hire staff with needed skills, then assign staff with specific skills to specific activities. It doesn't always work that linear. Yeah, so be careful of that. Issues, project management may be seen as a stern disciplinarian. What does that mean? You just bring people in for fulfilling their point, and you don't really have a team. So that doesn't really create the right atmosphere. Yeah? Everybody treats it as an additional job that they don't really want to belong to. Then PM must avoid heavy-handed actions. Yeah, so allow as well the team to develop and don't just fire people if they don't perform to what you're expecting, yeah, and then fix problems without blaming people. But we had that already. Our communication is as well about creating a learning culture, yeah, that you want to belong and that you want to actually do the commitment. Machinery, we have also physical asset control. If you're into engineering, this is probably a keyword that will be more useful than machinery-related control. Here you are often asked decommission and any underperforming equipment. So you evaluate it against the capacity that it still delivers. Bring in equipment with appropriate capabilities. Reassign specific equipment to specific activities. And as you have learned from my project, sometimes you can even replace machines with people or vice versa. That is a very controversial topic, but it's still a consideration if you look at the system of delivery of the project. So be sensitive with it and plan it out reasonable. If people do very harmful, hard activities, it's physically very harmful and very involving, and then it's probably a good consideration to consider machines. Money-related control, here we have quite a few, and this is really just to hint a little bit in the directions, but financial resource control, or as well often called controlling, how much money should we spend, how much how should it be spent, and then as well a project accountant or project financial manager have a huge role here. As well thinking about where the value is actually deriving from. Yeah? So spending versus value created is another favorite topic that seems to arrive now in all industries. Materials-related discontinue use of substandard material, seek new sources of superior material. And often this is not really followed through that way. It's often more a drive towards standardized products. Now this is quite frankly where we are at the moment. Or you do new designs completely. Those seem to be the two routes. And new designs are often less standardized. Yeah, especially if it's a groundbreaking new technology design that you're bringing forward. Okay. On the project-related side, from the resource-related, yeah, if you break it down, the options are often to reduce project size. We had that already. Reduce the project scope of what you are actually trying to deliver, yeah, or what the client wants. Is it really that he wants all the aspects, or can we actually maybe focus in a little bit and explain what he really wants to be have delivered, or she? And yeah, then last but not least, it's again the idea of terminating the project. Those should be always options for you in considerations. I have a little bit as well now about different mechanisms of steering and controlling the project actively. There are three key notions really that I have brought out. This is from, again, keywords from the literature. So the project steering, if you are German speaking or French speaking, you have different keywords. Yeah, you use actually the term project steering. I'm not quite sure what that is in French, but I know that those two countries have their own literature around it. For the rest, in English-speaking countries, it's cybernetic. Yeah, so it's actually the system that has been adapted for project steering. It comes actually from the Greek term cyber. So and literally meaning steering. So we can do that again at different order levels. Yeah, so how precise you are with that. I've just given you here the kind of monitoring mechanism as a logical diagram. It's literally where you look at the different effects. So we go back to the inputs that I started off with, and a factor and decision maker kind of interferes at the input level already, looking that we have the right ingredients or right inputs. Yeah, then it's a question of having, of course, the right process, and then the monitoring mechanisms comes just before the output. Yeah, which is either set. So in a way, the comparator. This is literally our measurement elements that are set against standards if we have them already. But if we don't have them, we can as well benchmark along the way. So here, to talk you through it, the mechanisms are system output monitoring by maybe a sensor or your measurements that you are defining. Yeah, this is often as well good if you can actually visualize it, that people can relate to it, what we are actually after. Yeah, and then if you have automated, it's of course the sensor measurements transmitted to a comparator, and this is of course the benchmarks that you're setting or as planned. Yeah. And then you have the measurements compared with predetermined standards, deviation from standard sent to decision maker, and then if deviation from standard is too large or too significant, either way, then signal sent to the effector to actually change it, yeah, or adjust the income. So this is of course a first order control mechanism, very simple. I have actually used here a bad example. I thought about that afterwards. This is again, if you think of technology or system sensors as well as a part, as an input in your project. We do this a lot. Yeah, so concrete is as well measured in cubic meters. We do the calculations and look actually against the quantities, how much has been delivered. Or in manufacturing, you have the tools that are being managed. but of course on some projects it's not that easy. But here to think of our room, that was the idea. The thermostat that keeps the room temperature at cozy 23 degrees. Here, is it 23 degrees? Probably warmer, colder? No. We prefer here cozy 25 degrees. Yeah? So this is quite around. Yeah, but this is literally what this would do, and then it would alter the temperature if it's warmer. So this one is actually broken, as we have figured out quite some time ago, and our feedback system doesn't work very sufficient because I made the complaint to our real estate team in the first week, and we have been now here for 9 weeks. So the feedback loop is not very sufficient, unfortunately. Must have been lost somewhere against a comparator. Yeah. Okay. We can even iterate it with updating our standards or expectations. Yeah? So this is potentially as well where our project key performance criteria could come in, or project success criteria. Yeah? You could then remove it against the standards. Yeah? And this is of course then a conscious memory selection. So this is potentially enhancing it as well with what you have facilitated, yeah, from the stakeholder expectations. But the idea would be still the same. Yeah? So in a way, this is the key. When is this actually feasible? Well, project management must, the project must be clearly defined, outputs in terms of relevant project characteristics. Yeah, we had that. We can do this now by capturing stakeholder expectations. It must, of course, establish standards for each characteristic. This is quite often to do. Yeah? So this means potentially as well going back to the client and agreeing like what the right standard is. Yeah? And then monitoring mechanisms, maybe sensors must be established to measure the characteristic at a regular interval. Which is the most simple sensor? What is the most common one if we haven't got machines yet? How can we censor anything in a project? So it's not as cryptic as the question may sound. How do you perceive the project? I think that was probably not a helping question, but how do you measure anything on the project? The most simplest project. If you're cooking, how do you measure if the food?
You try it, taste it.
Okay. I was panicking there because you did a movement like you had a thermometer, you know, that would be measuring the temperature.
Cooking,
Okay,
so
yeah,
you always say you
okay.
try it.
Yeah, exactly. So we
That's
don't use actually a thermometer, although we could. Yeah, this would be very sophisticated. But we taste it. Yeah, we use our own senses. Yeah, so sensor is literally just a checking on our measurement. Does that make sense? Okay, I have to change the terminology. It will be measure from there on. Yeah, so sensoring is measuring. Yeah, so it's literally. But okay, this is important to recognize. Yeah, just a different terminology. Yeah. And for each characteristic, we need a trigger point as well. Yeah? But this come back to our benchmark. Yeah, we have to see when it becomes critical to not actually be achievable anymore. Yeah, or when it impacts on our project. And if triggered, of course, appropriate action should be taken. Yeah, this is the active steering. Yeah, where you decide where you're going with your project as well. Yeah. There are follow-ups with this. I gave you as well the example earlier on. I think I will jump this now. I want to come as well to the closeout, otherwise we will get slightly behind. So there are other post-control types of project control. I have actually summarized them for you. This is maybe worthwhile reading through. And of course, in the end, there are flexible trade-offs as well that come with it, but have a look at this. It comes often back, of course, to our traditional notions that we have. And those were the trade-offs. But wait a minute, 2 more slides. Okay, let's get stuck. Do you have any questions to project control at that level? So it's very straightforward actually, but it gets of course more complicated the more refined your measurement has to be. Yeah, so in a lot of industries we work actually with very high accuracies on like particular measurement levels. Yeah, then it becomes very complicated if you build this of course from scratch. but you would of course sensibly look around you what has been done in the past. Yeah, so that would be the pre-research. Okay, handover closeout. There's actually an interesting correlation. Some companies have actually adopted a system where they have teams that come in after the project has been implemented. The team doesn't do the the handover or the closeout of the project. The actual team is removed and they bring a new team that kind of does closeout and handover. And there are issues basically with team attachment to projects, but we'll come to that in a second. In many projects, we don't have a handover. Yeah, but there is actually very poor practice in a way. Yeah, and then sometimes we have as well that product or is there a particular question that I can help you with? Is there something that we should discuss?
No, sorry.
No? Okay. But often it's as well that you don't actually have a proper handover. Yeah? You take the part and integrate it already before you actually had the handover. This is in particular bad if there are refinements. Yeah? So we have a lot of project failures where this is actually the effect. The part that was assembled or worked on wasn't actually handed over properly. And then of course the final notion from that is really that good closeouts don't necessarily save you from a failed project. This is not necessarily possible, but it can make a difference. Yeah? That's important to recognize. The closeout has a hidden psychology as well for the people involved, particularly for the project manager, depending on how much you identified with your project. There's often a notion of it's over or let's move on. Yeah, and what is that notion? Did you have that in a project before? Have you experienced something like this before? So let's I take the critical example with our project assessment that we are doing in a team. What will happen when you're submitting it and it's over? Okay, yeah, here are good notions. Yeah, party.
Let's celebrate after we actually find out the result. Yeah.
Okay.
Because
You want to
celebrate, isn't it?
Okay, this is important. Yeah. So here we have already the separation that I was curious about. Yeah. So there is a submission date when you are actually handing it over to me, yeah, the project, and you said party, but at what point? So you want to wait as well till I actually operated it, yeah, and had a critical look at it if it's actually functional to what I was after. Yeah. Actually, it's not so much what I was after, it's actually the interpretation. Yeah, it's more complicated. But to keep it simple, yeah, and you would celebrate at what point?
It depends. If you got enough money, then you can celebrate as many times as you want. You can celebrate after you hand out your project.
Well,
then you find the result. If it's bad, you celebrate that second time, and then if it's good, you can celebrate another time.
Yeah.
So it's like 3 times you can celebrate.
Okay, this is fascinating. Yeah? So you have actually stretched that. This is wonderful. So who do you celebrate with?
Your team.
Yeah, hopefully your team. Yeah. So this depends. Yeah. So if you are not quite sure if I shouldn't make jokes about this now. But there is a notion of the achievement of submitting. Yeah. But there's still this handover effect to me. Yeah? So I will actually, in theory, if it would be a product, I would check if this is a product that works for my system. Yeah? And then I give you the feedback, and I say like, wow, it's super. Yeah? It's better than expected. And then it's of course time to celebrate. Yeah? And then we have to manufacture this always that way. Yeah? This is then our benchmark that we use. Yeah? If it doesn't work, then in theory you would need to go back to it and redo it. Yeah? Or change the things that are not quite right. In our case, it's actually not that. You just get the feedback. Yeah? So, in form of a mark and then a lot of written feedback as well. Don't ignore that. I see that every time again. Yeah, people just look at the mark. Yeah, and then this is it. Yeah, Okay, never mind. Okay, so this is literally the hidden notion. There are 7 elements of project closeout management, and it was exactly indicating this different notions or part phases that coming along. You can say you can see that this is actually a model that comes from a paper from Koch Hansen, who is a lecturer here in the Northeast. Yeah, and the phrases are as well from him. Yeah, it's Eric is very keen on him, hence I have stuck with the literature with him. But he has used as well putting it all to bed, but it's ending it, of course. Yeah, so it's of course you finish the work. This is as well in your team. Yeah, you come to a product that you are confident in submitting. Yeah, or sometimes we submit when the deadline comes. Yeah? There are different approaches to it. It depends how you have planned it. And then there's handing over the product. Yeah, this is me having a look at it, if it's all that you have submitted, and then I can confirm that to you. Actually, you can see this. This is done electronically. We have a sensor for that. So turn it in actually tells you straight away if you have submitted the document, if it has uploaded. So I don't even do that anymore. This is a machine talking to you. It's actually not a machine. Arguably it's a machine, but anyway. So and then you have gaining acceptance for the product, to be integrated, and for me it's then harvesting the benefits. Yeah, you enrich my knowledge with your knowledge. So I will study this over Christmas, over the Christmas break, and indulge all the knowledge that I get from you. Yeah, this is wonderful. And then harvesting the benefits is of course on. I said again. Operations is set, so the actual operations and the refinement to the use. This is of course the key element that kind of drives the benefits for the organization. Yeah, so this is looking at if it's fit for purpose. Underlining this is as well the end of the project. Yeah, this means that you actually reduce the activities. Now this means that you are moving on, that you are as well looking for the new project, and that you are basically still equipped to do changes if there's a feedback loop. But it means as well that you basically potentially move to the next project. And of course, there's as well the hidden notion, disbanding the team with celebrations. Yeah, maybe, and staying friends for life. I hope that would be a nice output. I mean, for me, it's just functional, having a wonderful team effort, beautiful product. But of course, this is a hidden notion. Yeah. So there's a hidden complexity actually to the project closeout management, and this has been tried to be illustrated in this beautiful diagram. So project being closed out. So this is at the project stage. Closeout activities. This goes in both directions, of course. Yeah? So on one side, you have the customer or sponsor, and that is executives and project sponsors. So you have to communicate that to them. And on the other hand, you have as well the project team or the organizations involved on that side. And it's an important notion to give actually feedback as well. Now, this is very important. So this is a very simple diagram for that. So you have actually to arrive at a notion, maybe even workshop, where you have a feedback loop for lessons learned, that you can take forward, that you can use for improving your project management practice. And for the team members to as well have skills recognized or activities that they did, that they can maybe grow as well to be project manager, or that they can actually recognize the technical skills that they have applied as something that allows them to grow. Yeah? And then of course from the lessons learned you have that feedback loop that you use actually to inform as well, and say that this is like literally getting both sides. Yeah? From executive level you get the perspectives of how it was perceived, but you get as well internally, of course, the feedback of how the team journey was, how you manage actually the project. So this works as well on the team notions. And then you have, of course, the startup activities, and you take those forward. For refined measurement, for example, in future projects, or you may abandon measurement that wasn't helpful at all. that was perceived to not benefit too much. Yeah, and then you have a very simple lesson learned feedback loop. We have done already better in knowledge management to a degree, but this was a little bit a reminder for us. Yeah. So as I mentioned here, it's not really effective as such. Yeah. People normally concentrate on two issues, and yeah, this is very cynical. But you will find that in literature, especially from projects that are one-off. Yeah. Normally it's money and physical sign-off. Yeah? So if somebody has approved your project, this is it. They are off. Yeah? So there are a lot of things that are normally put aside. The lesson learned, this has to be driven by the project manager. Yeah, we had that before, that it was sitting with human resource management, as well the project management office, kind of a standardized thing. This can work if the project manager has loyalty to the project management office, but if this is just like an on and off for some projects, then it can be very bad actually. Yeah, so there are a few cynical remarks as well along that, and if you run the projects just in delivery teams, then of course time pressures may be actually the case that this project is already drawn off and the teams are already reassigned to new projects. So if you're in a project organization like that, then lessons learned is a nice idea, but this needs to be integrated at a level where you have actually time allocations as well to work actually through that. Yeah. Another bad one is that you have actually a ticking box exercise, which just affirms which lessons have not been taken into account in the last project. I've seen that as well, which was fascinating. Yeah? So they had a list of lessons that they clearly learned from past projects, but they were actually like kind of missing those again in the project. Yeah? So this can be as well a quite terrifying approach. Yeah? So this misses the point. Yeah? And in some cases, if you have project managers being assigned on how well they have done on the past project, then you don't have an honest organization. Yeah? Then the project manager is very likely to write this lesson learned in a very flowery sense to promote himself. That is as well when you have the wrong mechanism. We have said a lot, unfortunately, in more heavy industry lesson learned approaches, and as well in construction we have said quite often that it's actually not used for the right purpose. Pressure of work distracts, of course, from the basic task like records. My colleague was a lot more cynical. As a project manager, you don't want to be doing library work. You want to be there where it's fun. Yeah, I'm not sure that it translates that way, but it's actually a question of what your main role is in project management. So it's a discipline in a way to come back and record the right data. Then it's of course it costs money to do it properly. Yeah, it's a time notion really. Yeah, and not recording it is often seen as something that saves money, but this is of course a bad idea, because in the long run you often repeat the same mistakes if you haven't learned you personally from it, which brings me to the next point. So some project managers think as well that belongs to being a project manager, that you make the same mistakes like the pre-successor, because learning is something personal. And I have even some colleagues that believe that too. They give like scenarios out where they have fallen into the trap, and then they say, look, they make the same mistake, which I find slightly cynical. I think that you should then inform that there are certain dangers, that you can manage it, of course. Sometimes it's as well seen as something at organizational level, which is bad, because in projects we may actually work across different companies, so then they may see that not as an opportunity to share information or be honest about it. So there are a lot of issues with that. Good closeout is not publicly rewarded. This is another issue. Yeah. And project managers are often task-oriented, but as well human-oriented, I hope. Then they look for action rather than reflection. At the end they want the next challenge, so that's, we identified that already. And of course then Yeah, if it's one-offs, then you have enormous challenges because the projects that people have been on before are probably different. And you haven't worked in the team setting before. Then the lessons learned are very difficult to transfer probably if you even have something like that. Yeah. So how can we get better? We had already the lectures to that. Yeah, task-centric completion of the project and its handover. This is of course a key. Yeah, so that you have as well the feedback at the time when it's meaningful to the project. And then of course the notion that we had earlier this semester, knowledge management, yeah, and especially enabling individuals taking part in the organizational learning and throughout the project as well as after it, of course, yeah, that people can carry this on as well into new projects. Learning involves, of course, as well transferring knowledge, not just information. So in a way, it's as well showing each other what we have learned and how can things be done differently. Yeah? So active learning, taking as well maybe the leadership role, even if you're not the leader, and emphasizing, oh, I've seen that differently before on another project. Have you tried it ever to do it this way? Yeah? This is normally the sentence that comes along with it. Yeah? So, which emphasizes literally the culture of mutual interest and mutual trust, of course. Yeah? And this is normally recognized in keywords as community of practice. Okay, that would be it for me for today. Any questions? Okay, quite a run through. Next week we have an additive on. So we have actually 2 sessions potentially next week. One is driven by one of the project team, a conference on Friday. Yeah, this is from 2 till 4 in the where we have made it a little bit the challenge. Have you circulated the room already? Yeah. So it's in the new campus. It's in the business school on the 4th floor, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. There are 4 elevators. Good luck. Yeah. It's there's coffee and drink and food. Yeah, so it should be quite nice as a closeout actually for the semester. Yeah, and before that, on Thursday, we have a small session on project information systems. This is a case study from a PhD student that is here as a visitor, as a research fellow. Yeah, she will be talking about this. Friday between 2 and 4 p.m. Yeah? Is that correct? Yeah, okay. Yeah, if you have any questions, they're in charge. Yeah.
Whereabouts is that in the hub, is it? Whereabouts is that taking place?
The